Trump denied the allegations and said he has no idea who Carol is. His attorneys plan to appeal the verdict. CBS's Sarah Ewald-Weiss tells us new economic numbers out today tell the story of stubborn inflation.
Consumer prices were up 0.4% last month, an acceleration from 0.1% seen in March. Prices were up 4.9% from a year ago, a continual easing from the year-over-year increases seen last year. Food prices were unchanged in April, but housing costs continue to tick up and energy costs went up slightly after decreasing in March.
The Biden administration will begin denying asylum to migrants who enter the country without first seeking protection in another country. And it plans to open more hubs to deal with migrants, with more expected now that pandemic restrictions under Title 42 are about to expire. CBS's Manuel Bojorquez with more from the border.
The crackdown in downtown El Paso has already begun. Law enforcement and city officials have been clearing out street encampments.
I can't go back to where I came from because they could kill my son.
Gregorio Felipe fled Guatemala with his 5-year-old son Isidro. He said he was being extorted and was told if he didn't pay the money, they would kill him and his son. He had to leave his 3 other kids and wife behind. Officials who are already struggling to house migrants in shelters are dealing with an influx of uncertainty.
And checking Wall Street, the Dow is down 96 points. The S&P and NASDAQ are higher. This is CBS News.
Find your next great hire with Indeed. Their hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates.
WAUK 540 AM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair. Here's what you need to know. 4 people were hurt after an apparent explosion at the Windsor condominium complex on Madison's west side Tuesday evening. Fire Chief Chris Carvin says one of the units in the building is believed to be the origin of the blast. Carvin says at least 6 units were affected. The entire building is now uninhabitable. 22-year-old Krista Marie Welch has been missing from Polk County since May 7th. She left the area in an unknown vehicle after getting a call saying her niece was injured and in the hospital. Police say her niece was not hurt. Welch has ties to the Green Bay area and also in Maine. Since leaving, she's had no contact with her family or friends, and her phone is off. Welch is also believed to be no longer taking her mental health-related medications. If you've seen Krista Marie Welch or know where she is, please contact local law enforcement. I'm Jane Matnair. This is Civic Media News.
Man, this house is in need of a few upgrades. Windows, doors, even the basement needs a little TLC. With the Inflation Reduction Act, you can have all these assessed and addressed. It's there for you. Doesn't matter the age or condition. Call Green Homeowners United, the only woman-owned, union-affiliated residential energy efficiency firm in Milwaukee County. They'll take you through the journey of getting an energy-efficient and beautiful home. Claim all your discounts. Call 414-604-6450. That's 414-604-6450.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
If you love to spend time in the kitchen, elevate your cooking game with a pantry full of premium hemp products from Mary Jane's Hemp Shop in Waukesha. Mary Jane sells flights of Himalayan sea salts, raw sugar flights, local raw honey, and just in time for summer, a variety of salt rubs for meat and grilling. Not sure how to use the products in your own kitchen? Check out Mary Jane's YouTube channel for ideas and recipes. Elevate your cooking game at Mary Jane's Hemp Shop, 335 West Main Street, Waukesha, or online at maryjanespantry.shop.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUK.
It's great to be here to speak directly to the woke mob.
The liberals have basically made up this whole agenda that guacamole is made of avocados. It's not the truth. So it goes, so it goes, so it goes, so it goes.
Ticked off, tee off. This is it.
Scooby boo boo. Scooby doo.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Oh, Wisconsin!
Where do you get your news from? What media outlets do you trust? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Where do you get your news? Obviously, if you're listening to this show, maybe you get it from here. Maybe
We would like that.
We would like that, but maybe you get it from other shows on Civic Media. Oh, we already have a comment. Joe McClear.
Oh, we love Joe.
No, Greg.
No,
He
Greg.
said
today.
No, Greg.
No, Greg. Today.
There is indeed. It is Hump Day Wednesday, but it is no Greg Bach Wednesday. Greg is feeling a little under the weather, so he didn't want to hack into your eardrum from
And
a
we
cough.
appreciate that.
And we appreciate that for our own sake as well. But we love Greg, and he will be back next week. But get that out of the way, I guess. Yes, because it is Wednesday. Thanks for noticing, Joe. But no. So where do you get your news from? And I'm asking this because there is a new poll out that maybe isn't surprising, but at least there's data to back it up that says Americans don't agree on what news to trust. Democrats and Republicans disagree on which news sources are trustworthy, according to the latest YouGov poll. And it just got me thinking of, for people who listen to this show, where do you get your news?
Maybe it's only online. Maybe you only, if it's Washington Post or JS or Cap Times, or maybe that's where you get it from.
Yeah. And is it more radio versus TV versus written word? So online, like Substacks and the newspapers that are online. Maybe you still get an actual newspaper. But I'm just curious as far as, it's interesting to hear people say they don't trust the news, but I think there's still a fair amount of news consumption. And so trying to hear from you on who do you trust? Why do you trust them? Because I'm trying to think, I feel like I don't know if I trust. I think I watch any cable news. Not that I watch a lot of cable news anyways, with the skepticism.
Yeah.
But I definitely trust Journal Sentinel. I mean, and I also, I have the advantage that I get to see that some of the journalism happening there up front and the thoroughness and that they take before they publish. But I'm so interested. Do you have?
I watch a lot of MSNBC.
You do? Okay.
I haven't watched CNN for a long time.
Me either.
I do watch local news. I watch Channel 12. I'm an old person, so I watch my news from 5 to 6, like old people always did, and my parents did. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Where do you get your news from? Tom from Nakusa joining us. Hey, Tom, where do you get your news?
Almost exclusively from the Young Turks.
Oh, wow.
I'm familiar with them too, Tom.
What do you like about the Young Turks?
I feel I'm getting all the news and I'm not getting lied to, and nobody's giving me a snow job, and it's not corporate owned.
So how would you, for people who are unfamiliar with Young Turks, how would you describe them to someone?
They're honest, and they do an excellent job, and they don't leave anything out. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
They'll give you their honest opinion.
And so do you typically watch it on your computer on YouTube then? Because they're still only on YouTube, correct?
No, they've got different platforms. They got there's a few different platforms, but yes, that's where I mainly watch them, is on YouTube. But they're on Facebook also, and I think Pluto they were on for a while, and
nice. All right.
There's a number of places.
Anything else? Any mainstream channels? Any local newspapers? Where do you get your Wisconsin news from?
Well, you.
Oh, well, thank you.
I listen to you just about every day. I'm out working out in my shed.
Oh, well, we appreciate that.
We really appreciate that, Tom.
And I'm not so sure about your opinion in the Milwaukee Journal. I worked there for
you did
about 18 years, not in the newsroom, in production. But
okay.
I heard things, so
fair enough.
Well, thank you so much for checking in, Tom, and calling in and listening. We really, really appreciate it very much. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Tom from West Dallas. Hey, Tom, where do you get your news?
Hi there. Mainly, like the Man with Young Turks, I watch them once in a while, that or the Midas Touch Network. I get my news through them. I also follow the Fifth Column, who takes on one subject, and he can take anywhere from 3.5 to 12 minutes to explaining exactly what's going on and how it relates to everything else. He's very good. I highly recommend him. That or Google News. I read a lot of news. Google, Huffington Post, Smart News. Once in a while, the Journal. But I don't. I used to buy the paper every day, but now I don't at all, just because it's easier. But those are basically my news sources.
Yeah. So is it
And
just? I haven't heard of the Fifth Column before. Is that a podcast or what is the Fifth Column?
He's on YouTube. He does have a podcast too, I believe, is BEAU of the Fifth Column. He's from Florida, bearded guy, but he is really good at explaining different topics and what is going on. He doesn't. There was just a thing about the shooter down in Texas with the patch, and people wrote in and asked, "Why aren't you talking about the patch?" And he basically said, because I read this doesn't necessarily make it a fact yet. He goes, that patch, once the originators of that patch got called out and stuff, then the patch went online and anybody could buy it. So he goes, I don't know, and this was, a few days ago, but he said, I don't know yet if that patch is relevant to this or not. I don't like talking about things that I cannot verify.
Yeah, you got to respect that,
so
right?
I highly recommend him. He's really good. He has at least twice a day, 3 times a day, he comes out with a new topic and talks about it.
And it's really a luxury to have that amount of time to delve into something. You know what I mean? It
Right,
really is,
right.
because traditional newscasts, they've got 2 minutes, maybe 2
Oh,
minutes
yeah.
is as long as they spend
Right.
on anything.
And anything even like NPR. I do listen to NPR. I get some of my news there as well, but that always drives me nuts is when they're in a topic and it's like, okay, we're out of time. We got to go.
Well,
it's like, oh,
we
come
we run into that.
Oh,
Sometimes
we
the radio is the radio. And you're like, well, we gotta get to commercial because people paid for this. So thanks so much for the call,
Right,
Tom. Oh, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
I'm gonna keep writing these down. So I would actually, this is as fun to hear your thoughts as where you get your news and why you trust them and what about them you like. Because then I can also, this is an aggregate for me to grab them and put them in today's show notes because I had not heard. I'd heard of Midas Touch. I had heard of the Young Turks. That was one of the outlets that for a little while when I was still in LA, I was like, I wonder if I could try to figure out how to get a job with them because
you would have been good.
I would have been good. I don't know if I'm as
Anna Kasparian, if that's how you pronounce her name, is so good.
She's such. Did you ever watch the debate between? She went on Ben Shapiro's show. And it was a really great conversation.
Was it?
They were both super respectful and obviously two people who have very different views. But I would actually go back and rewatch that because she's so, she knows when to get angry and when she does use emotion, but she is largely so put together and eloquent and gets her point across very well. You may not always agree with her, but I would say, she is very, very talented.
She's good.
But we are asking the question, where do you get your news from? Because there's new polls out that not only do we, the left and the right, not agree on who they trust to get their news. So it kind of brings up the question of what is the truth? Since we don't have anymore the 3 main channels where that's what the news said. There is endless of, and I think there's probably arguments to be made of the good and the bad, because I often think, even when I think about this show, when you have the responsibility of people getting information from you or getting their opinion from you, and you have X amount of space in the paper, you're putting out so many, and maybe on a blog or like an online outlet, there's not as much of a limit on how many pieces you can publish each day. But, or even, a TikTok video that's 60 seconds. You're like, what's the most important pieces to put into this 60 seconds to keep people's attention? Because I'm not going to do a half hour. You can't even do a half hour TikTok.
Right.
But all of it is, I feel like, as much of the trade-off of what do we cover and what do we not cover. It's not necessarily that the stories themselves and the people who are covering those stories are lying. It's what the choice comes to the editor or the publisher, or for us, largely Jane and I.
Yep.
What do we want to cover? What interests us? What do we want to talk about? What do we think is the most important? What is someone else not talking about? And so it's the decision of when there is so much to cover, what you do and you don't, that I think ultimately becomes the differentiator between a lot of these outlets. Because we've talked about many times, Fox is covering some news. They're just not covering Trump news, like yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday was kind of a big day for the former president.
Yeah. It's so I think that is also the kind of topics that they choose, each outlet chooses to talk about. But we would love to hear from you. Where do you get your news from? Who do you trust and why? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. You can call us. You can text us. If you are watching the live stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter at As Goes Wisconsin, you can leave us a comment there. Ben Zimmerman will come back with his thoughts when we come back. But this is As Goes Wisconsin, and we're talking about media.
We're rolling out the red carpet for all area musicians to be a part of Hoozles at the Lake's Rise to Music competition this summer. If you're an artist and you believe you have real talent to share, you're invited to check out competition details. Then sign up for the second annual Rise to Music at hoozlesrisetomusic.com. Registration is open now. Brought to you by Hoozles at the Lakes, your local civic media radio station, Wiscountry 105.5 WIRI and Max Inc. Radio.
Are you an experienced industrial painter, drywall finisher, or want to be? Do you want more than a job, but a high-paying career where your interests are well represented, ensuring a safe work environment? The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades of District Council 7 wants you. Bring your knowledge or ask about paid training. Learn more now. Call Tom Coyne, 262-488-4839, 262-488-4839, or go to the union's website, iupatdc7.com.
Up North News Radio is Wisconsin's new choice for progressive talk about important state issues, from the team that brings you the news through social media, newsletters, and here on the radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Join me weekday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Lots of sunshine this afternoon with highs around 75. Winds out of the south 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies tonight, lows around 51, highs around 77 tomorrow. Turning cooler Friday and Saturday with highs in the upper 60s. Scattered showers possible both days. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
read, listen, watch, share. We're talking about who do you trust when it comes to getting your news, and also that for both national news, local news, world news, maybe it's different for each one because local news is important to know what's going on in Wisconsin, and would love to hear where I know where I get my local news is typically Journal Sentinel, WPR, Cap Times, Wisconsin State Journal. But would love to know if there's other local outlets that you really trust as far as where you think good information comes from. But we're talking about this because according to the results of a new YouGov poll released this week, their April survey shows extreme polarization in how much folks trust, how much people put trust into 45 different news outlets. So according to the survey, probably not a big shock, CNN and MSNBC are the most divisive. A much larger share of Democrats than Republicans think they're in the business of telling the truth. But winning, I thought was interesting, but winning over Democrats might be easier. The survey shows Democrats are more likely to trust most media outlets than Republicans. They're even more likely than Republicans to have faith in the conservative-leaning New York Post.
Wow, the New York Post?
The New York Post, because I certainly get headlines for the New York Post, and I always have a side eye of like, all right, let me dig into this a little bit deeper.
That's where I go for all my salacious, unfounded celebrity gossip. It's like the Daily Mail in England.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, I kind of believe that. I feel like I have someone in my life who very much does not trust the mainstream media and is constantly sending me things that I feel like when I dig through a little bit deeper, I'm like, well, this isn't founded either. But there's something about, and I think I get both sides of the argument. On the one side of, and we talked about this with John Russell a little bit, that there are some big news outlets that are owned by like private equity firms. And so when you look at who owns the actual outlet, and if it is not independent, it's
profit driven.
It's profit driven, but it's also how do we cover, what angle do we take to cover this story? Versus, there's a ton of Substack independent journalists now. There's a lot of YouTubers, as we said, and people who are doing independent fact checking. But, the trade-off there is like at a big outlet, there are tons of editors, there's tons of fact checking, there's a huge team to verify what gets printed out because they're liable, obviously, if something goes wrong. Versus like an independent or one-man show, they do their best, but there's also not necessarily someone who's checking their work. And so I think that a range would be good, but I can kind of see why I see the skepticism on both sides. But there is a part of me when this person in my life who sends me kind of tweets, and I'm like, well, I feel like if this was true, there's enough really hungry journalists out there who would love to break this story. And so the fact that no one else is really talking about this makes me think that I'm going to wait before I react. And so that is how I feel about some of the tweets and whether or not you can trust everything you read on the Bird app.
Yeah, you got to be careful there too. 844-967-2789. Texture from the 414. Perhaps one of the best news sources, in my opinion, is John Oliver. He is thorough, takes the time to explain, gives sources, and is funny as hell.
My hero.
He is so good.
John,
is so good.
That show, I mean, Jon Stewart is still
the gold.
Not the gold. He's just such a good interviewer. But the research that goes into Last Week Tonight and the rabbit holes they find and how they condense it into, because the show itself is only 30 minutes and they rarely ever do just the whole show. They do like a first segment and then they do the bigger segment in the like 2/3 to 3/4. But how much they condense in such a short period of time and how he basically doesn't take a breath and doesn't trip up
it's astonishing.
It's a masterclass.
Yeah, it truly is. Another text from the 920. John from Oshkosh. Only cable news is CNN. I watch that with a grain of salt. Local news radio, of course, civic media. Online media like Young Turks, David Packman, Midas Touch are all good. I mostly look at the world around me, observe what people say and their actions, and form my own opinion. Common sense is a lost art.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
We love it.
It's important. We do have a call.
Great.
844-967-2789. CJ from Stoughton. What do you watch?
Well, thank you for taking my call. I watch the #1 news network. There's a difference between personalities and journalists, and that would be Brett Baer Special Report. He has both sides of the issue on every panel. We saw an example of who covers the news. You know who didn't show up for proof that the Biden family has taken millions today, that the Congressman Comer explained? You know what? Surprisingly, MSNBC, CNN never showed today. What a shock. So you continue to look down that road for your news, and you're not getting it because there's proof this president is corrupt, and your networks didn't even show up. What a shock.
CJ, can I also ask, how much civic media do you listen to?
You hear me call in.
I know, that's what I'm this is a genuine question because I feel like you listen to a lot.
All day and all night. All day, all night.
Well,
so, yeah, I'm the truth detector for Civic Radio.
All right,
got it.
I haven't heard one word about what happened today with our current president.
Okay, CJ, we really are running up against the clock, and I do appreciate you calling, and I do appreciate you not yelling.
Thank you, CJ.
Yes,
all
thank
right.
you, CJ.
Well, we're going to keep this conversation rolling because we haven't even gotten to all of our texts and our comments yet. So where do you get your news? Why do you trust them? Give us a call, 844-967-2789.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
CBS News special report. New York Republican Congressman George Santos indicted and arrested on federal charges that include wire fraud, money laundering, and lying to Congress.
The transfer of money from Company A that looks like, based on the indictment here, is alleged to be just a fraudulent company and goes into Santos's bank account so he can use it for personal expenses.
Legal analyst Jessica Levinson says Santos is accused of embezzling money from his own election campaign.
I think that it is possible that we could see a plea deal where we could see, obviously, he decides that he doesn't want to go to trial. The federal government, again, lots of documents just listed in the indictment. And he says, I will agree to less time in federal prison and I will plead guilty to X, Y, and Z.
Since taking office, Santos has rebuffed calls for his resignation over lying about his past. CBS News special report. I'm Steve Kathan.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. 2023 is the deadliest year for law enforcement officers in Wisconsin in 20 years. St. Croix County Sheriff Scott Knutson was Deputy Katie Lysing's boss. She's the 4th law enforcement officer killed in Wisconsin so far this year.
We need good cops. We're killing the good cops. And it's frustrating.
Lysing was shot and killed at a traffic stop last Saturday. Milwaukee County leaders are striking out a local buy-in to help maintain American Family Field. The idea was voted down in committee Monday. Republican state lawmakers want Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to pay at least part of the $300 million to keep the stadium maintained. In sports, the Dodgers beat the Brewers last night 6-2. The rubber match of the series is today. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
Images are everywhere, on iPads, cell phones, or the cloud. In fact, everywhere but where you can find them. Mike Crivello Camera and Imaging Center has the solution to this problem. They're called pictures, and we print them right from our website. And you order them online at MikeCrivellos.com. And they look magnificent in your photo album.
Mike Crivello's world is a wonderful world of camera.
It's not a picture till it's printed. 181st and Blue Mound.
The 4 most dreaded words. My computer is down. Oh boy, that bites. Remain sane. PC and Bat together will fix the pain. Rated #1 PC doctor in Southeast Wisconsin. Great service, great rates, and fast service with no trip charge. Experts with PCs, laptops, network servers, protection, backups, and can even help you remotely. Click PCandBat.com or call us at 262-706-3235. That's 262-706-3235. Remain sane. We fix the pain.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
The trust nothing era. We're talking about where you get your news from and what do you trust? Because, there was a new poll that says that we're very divided on where we get our information from. But also, as of yesterday, there's 2 trends that are about to unfold basically in real time. So Mr. Tucker Carlson went to Twitter last night and said, starting soon, he'll be bringing a new version of the show he's been doing on Fox News to the Bird app. And I think we have a little bit of a clip.
We do.
Yes.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We bring some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others.
So
I have so many things.
So long as, because Tucker's also headed to a legal battle because he's claiming that Fox breached their contract first. So he is not in violation of breaching his contract by starting his own show on Twitter. But also, it looks like, and as we were just saying, the Young Turks, Midas Touch, David Pakman, there's these Steven Crowder on, there's a lot of people who have built a career as an independent show on social media. So it looks like that's what Tucker's gonna do next on Twitter. Now, Musk said he and Carlson have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever.
Oh, so that was a premature announcement.
Well, Axios did have a scoop that they've been talking, but they don't actually have a deal yet. I think Elon tweeted out basically, we don't have an actual deal, but he is going to be held to the same rules and rewards of any other content creator on Twitter. Although it sounds like some of the rewards he might be able to get aren't actually like released as features yet. So we'll see. I mean, obviously he's going to bring a lot more people than I would if I started my show on Twitter. As much as I think that show would be great. I mean, technically we are on Twitter, but then also, generative AI is here, and the brains behind it have warned administration officials during a recent White House meeting of an imminent explosion of highly convincing and manipulative fake videos and stories in the run-up of the 2024 election. So think fake news on steroids.
Yeah. And can I just back up for a second? Going back to some of the things that Tucker said. He said, just because it's factual doesn't mean it's true. And that I should be able to state my opinion as fact. Well, my opinion is that I'm 5'11", 130 pounds with emerald green eyes and flaming red hair.
Is that what you always wanted?
Sure. That's my opinion. You can check the stream and see that is not a fact.
Yeah.
So equating opinion with fact is not accurate. And I also just want to remind folks that Tucker Carlson's own lawyers in court told the judge that anyone who listens to Tucker and thinks it's all the truth is an idiot. Essentially. They essentially said it's an opinion show, and I wouldn't believe him. You shouldn't believe him. His lawyers said that. Fox lawyers said that. You can look it up.
Yeah. Yes. And so, I think it's interesting that he'll be I also think it's interesting to see what the overlap between who was watching him on Fox every night will be, and how many of those people also get stuff from Twitter.
Well, do you think that's not the same audience?
I think there's probably some of the same audience,
but I don't think a majority of Fox viewers are on Twitter.
Yeah, I would say and not that he won't have a huge audience on Twitter too, but it could be different than the people who were tuning in every night to Fox. But both of these, similarly to what he said, basically trust no one but me. And then Elon yesterday also tweeted, trust nothing, not even nothing. And so it's just this, I don't know, it feels to a certain extent like a scare tactic of don't trust anyone except us. And so where are you left to, what do you instinctively trust? And that comes back to, I think, the conversation and the question we started the show with today is where do you get your news from and why do you trust them? And I also feel like in the YouGov poll found was that, I don't know, I tend to think that journalists it's hard to do the news.
Yes, it is.
It's hard to get all of the facts, especially when you're up against a deadline and stories are still unfolding. And like I said, the trade-off and the choices between what you run and what you don't run, the facts you include and what you don't include, discretion is a huge part of the news. And it's just an interesting, because it comes back to the idea that without the news, without, people actually out there getting the story, verifying it, we're kind of just all lost in the dark, right? Democracy dies in the dark.
Yes.
And do we not need some guiding light as far as this is, if it was here, we know that this is the base. These are at least the facts of the story that are irrefutable, because without that, it gets,
that's why I think this is so dangerous to say that I should be able to state my opinion as fact.
Yeah.
That is not accurate. We all have opinions.
But I think, it'd be interesting to take individual, because the YouGov poll that we started with was talking about different outlets. So they asked about 46 different outlets versus individuals. Because I think that would also be interesting of like, is there more than CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever? Is it a person on those channels? Is it a specific journalist that you follow? Is it the person that you trust over the outlet?
Interesting.
And I would wonder how often that is also the case of I trust Tucker, I trust Rachel Maddow, I trust Anderson Cooper, these people who are bigger, that are our personalities in news. I trust Anna Kasparian,
right?
Ben Shapiro, and like a lot of those people also put opinion into their shows. But it'd be interesting to see what data is available as far as people trusting people versus trusting the outlet, the source.
Sure.
But yeah, and so I don't know. It was interesting times ahead as far as, but it's also interesting the whole Twitter thing, because Twitter itself is likely to be, ground zero for the spread of AI generated like lies, right?
Yep.
Because it is a place where anyone can be, but their content moderation is constantly in flux. I think they are trying to do something as far as like site sources or something like that. Like I think they're, how are they actually going to fact check things? If they're going to be the place that you have to trust, are they going to at all? But, the mainstream media, which has studied up on misinformation over the last 2 elections, probably is going to be the best defense of like, how do you fact check Twitter? Like if you read something on Twitter from someone, where do you go then to be like, well, is this true?
Right.
Or is this just this person who paid for a blue check mark behind their name? That's what they're saying. But it's interesting. So let's go through some of these
comments on
the stream. Ben Zimmerman. Getting news from multiple sources is important to get the whole picture. Using critical thinking to connect the dots will always be necessary because things get cut for the time or column space. Totally true.
Absolutely.
Roger Foss says, I get my news from my local AM station, WPCN Stevens Point in the morning, WFHR from 11 to 4. Yay. And local CBS station, WSAW in the evenings. Travis says, PBS, NPR, Journal Sentinel, Up North News, YouTube, Midas Touch, Rational Nation. I haven't heard of that one.
Never
As
heard of that
goes, woo, Devil's Advocates, TikTok, Under the Desk. Under the Desk is great.
Good.
Members of the Villains Guild. I haven't heard of them.
I'm going to check it out just because I like the name.
Yeah.
And I want to be a member of the Villains Guild.
Marcus DiPaula. And Ben earlier had said, now this, As Goes Wisconsin and Civic Media, MSNBC, Spectrum News, AJ Plus, Military Times, BBC, The Young Turks, and more. So yeah, so there's, people are out there getting a variety of news, which is great.
If you want to check in, you can call and or text anytime, 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PATE.
So we'll quickly end this segment with, I guess, what was the biggest. We'll do the end of this segment with what probably was the biggest news yesterday. And then we'll do the next segment on what I don't know, arguably, to give CJ credit, I knew the Comer Oversight Committee was meeting today. I did not have time to watch any of it this morning. I don't know what's been unveiled. I haven't had time to read about it. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow. But the other breaking news I did hear is our friend George Santos is in a little bit of trouble.
Yes, George is in custody.
Georgie Porgy. So that should be interesting. So we'll cover that a little bit more in the next segment. But I just, Trump, former President Trump, found liable yesterday for sexual abuse. And the federal jury ruled that the former president more than likely sexually abused advice columnist E. Jean Carroll in Manhattan department store 3 decades ago. And so as a result of the verdict, he has to pay her $5 million in damages.
Yep.
Which, unknown how big of a hit that is for him. I don't know if any of us are really clear how much money he has or doesn't have at any given point. But But yeah, and so it's interesting. I haven't seen a ton of discourse as far as, does this help him? Does this hurt him? I would probably imagine the likely sources are taking their sides as far as how credible or not this is.
There were 4 other women that testified along with
Yeah.
Eugene Carroll. It's not like it's my word against his word. It's his word against their word.
Yes. I do love that. I mean, I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. This verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's your first.
That's my first Trump impression.
Yeah.
But I just.
Oh, can I just say, she's not his type. He identified her in the picture as
This
his
is
ex-wife,
ex-wife.
Marla Maples. So
I know.
that might have not been true.
But I want to, and now we have to go to a break, but it feels like bad news might be Trump's Popeye's spinach. Like what Popeye's spinach is to him, bad news is for Trump, because his polling numbers look pretty good right now. So we'll dive into that a little bit more when we come back and talk about Mr. Santos's troubles. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Horizon Healthcare helps individuals recover from the devastating effects of mental illness and drug dependency. They're currently seeking a first shift office administrative assistant to join their Waukesha team. Qualifications include a high school diploma and basic computer skills. Starting pay is $18 per hour. Contact Tiffany Sanchez now at 414-841-2972. That's 414-841-2972. Join the Horizon Healthcare team today. Contact Tiffany Sanchez at 414-841-2972.
When it comes to hair and makeup artistry, there is only one salon that you need, Raven and Blonde. Their stylists are passionate about their work and committed to giving you the best service possible. From precision cuts to perms, balayage to dimensional color service, and more. The Raven and Blonde stylists do it all. Book your appointment today at ravenandblonde.com. That's ravenandblonde.com. Raven and Blonde, where hair and makeup artistry meets exceptional service. 157 South First Street, Milwaukee.
Civic Media isn't just another broadcast company. We're your neighbors. We bleed green and gold, and we love nothing more than to help fellow Wisconsinites succeed. Whether your business wants to advertise to your local community or the entire state, Civic Media can help. Find out more at civicmedia.us.
Weather brought to you by Taqueria Miyagi, Waukesha's authentic Mexican food truck, which is now open and ready to serve you. Find us at 1610 Lincoln Avenue in the BP gas station parking lot, or call us at 262-278-6590.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. 75 this afternoon, under mainly sunny skies, winds out of the south 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies and quiet again tonight, 51. Mainly clear tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 77. Turning cooler Friday and Saturday with a chance for scattered rain showers, highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
It ain't complicated. Well, I've grown to hate it.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And I just want to make this point because, in the past few months, including yesterday with Trump's being found liable for sexual assault and defamation in the Eugene Carroll case. But on top of that, he's been indicted on 34 felony counts. He learned that someone who has worked for him at Mar-a-Lago is cooperating with federal prosecutors on whether he hid documents. He lost a civil trial over a rape accusation from 1996. defended his Access Hollywood contention that celebrities like himself can grab women by the genitals.
For 1,000,000 years, they've been doing that for 1,000,000 years, he said.
Quote, historically, that's true with stars. He's faced rising competition from credible 2024 challengers, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott. And he's seen a growing likelihood he'll be indicted again, this time for trying to corrupt the 2020 elections. And at the same time, Trump has moved up in Republican primary and general election polls, won a flurry of 2024 endorsements from House Republicans, including several from Florida beating DeSantis at a high-stakes inside game, raised a formidable $34 million for his 2024 campaign with a surge of donations after his indictment. He ran former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo out of the race for 2024, basically. And he's revved up his voters with continued claims that the deep state is targeting him, which is apparently appealing. And so, for the first time in a long time, top Republicans and Democrats are saying that it looks impossible to beat Trump in the Republican primary right now, like where we stand today, despite the litany of things I listed off first. And it's just, we didn't really cover it on this show, but last Friday, Robin Voss outright said Trump is a loser.
Yeah, don't want him.
We do not want him on the ticket. We need to do something else to make sure he's not on the ticket. And no one seems to be no establishment Republicans, no conservatives who are like, we do not want this guy to be on the ticket again, has a plan to torpedo him. And it's like deja vu in 2016 all over again.
Well, and it's also like Frankenstein. You created the monster, and now the monster's on its own. And the monster has a whole bunch of supporters with torches and pitchforks. And that's what they're afraid of that.
Yeah, it's but isn't it just like I don't know, there's Teflon Don, but it's almost like, unlike almost any character I feel like we've ever seen in recent history, the more damning information or evidence or, convictions even, only makes him stronger. So it's literally like his spinach.
Well, and he go back to, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any votes.
Yeah.
He said it all those years ago. And I just want to point out, Karina called in, didn't have a chance to get her on the air. He is notoriously known for not paying his bills.
Yes.
So even though this court awarded E. Jean Carroll $5 million, it's highly unlikely she'll see that money ever.
And I don't think, I've never met this woman in my life. And I wonder how much it's the money versus the verdict that actually matters. Because I would say what it's come to represent for other survivors is not nothing.
I think it's more about the validation than it is about the money.
And RAIN, which stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, thanked Carroll for going public yesterday. This was the quote: "We thank E. Jean Carroll, who will inspire survivors to come forward to tell their stories and face perpetrators." So I think it's not nothing, even if she never sees a dime.
Absolutely.
So,
but again, I think this is a part of this man and what could be considered unethical behavior in stiffing contractors and not paying lawyers. And that would seem like not a good character thing to have.
But it's so interesting, and I'm going to make this pivot, because he can somehow get away with it, but it doesn't look like George Santos is going to get away with it.
Oh, George is in. Ooh, Georgie, this is not looking good for George Santos.
George Santos charged by Justice Department in federal probe. So federal prosecutors have filed criminal charges against New York Representative George Santos, the Republican lawmaker who we've been for the last 5 months, basically since he took office. His astonishing pattern of lies and fabrications have just dumbfounded so many of us, and they just keep coming as far as who he's frauded, what he's lied about. But he was taken into federal custody today, and he's expected to appear in federal court in the Eastern District. He faces 13 federal charges, 7 counts of wire fraud.
Yeah, that's not good.
3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives.
Ruh-roh.
So I don't know if he's as Teflon as Don is.
What will be interesting though is Kevin McCarthy really needs
Oh,
his
yeah.
vote. Really, really, really needs George
Yeah.
Santos' vote. And so I think we're going to see this continued reluctance to hold him to account until the last possible human second.
You think Kevin McCarthy is going to make his bail?
Well, don't ask Trump for it because we know he's not good for the money.
No, they're certainly not. All right. Well, that was a fun first hour.
It was.
But when we come back, Mark Sommerhauser, communications director and policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum,
I'm so excited.
is going to be here. And they came out with this report a couple weeks ago. This is the first time that we're going to be able to talk about it. But their most recent research on higher education funding found that there is a discrepancy between where we rank in funding 2-year colleges in Wisconsin, which is pretty high, compared to funding our 4-year colleges, which is pretty low. And so we're going to talk to him about, is that a fair comparison? Where are we with enrollment? Where are we with cost of going to college? So break down that report. And then at 12:30, we're going to talk to Chris Marion, who's the communications specialist for Wisconsin Women in Conservation.
Hey.
So we have 2 great interviews coming up in the next hour. So stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.